holding tonight the Tomar Devorah, the 10th Midah, the 10th attribute, Titin Emes Yaakov. You shall give truth to Jacob, to Yaakov. Again, today we're learning for the Refuah Shlema of Pinchas ben Miriam. You shall have health and koach, and also for the well-being of all those affected, captive, and those fighting here in Eretz Yisrael. And let's just start quickly with chapter 130. Shemalas memakmak rasicha Adonai Adonai Shema bekoili tiyena ozen chok ashubas akol tachnunai mevaynus tishmei Adonai miyamid kimachas licha leman tivari kivisa Adonai kivsa nafshi l'dvari v'l'dvari achalti nafshi Adonai m'shem le'barka yachid Yisrael Adonai kiyam Adonai hachesed v'harbe imay v'dus v'hu yifta es Yisrael mekol avernusov. Shall have be watched and taken care of. Be'ezus Hashem, the Yeshua Gedolah. Okay, so today we are doing the 10th Midah. 10th Midah is Titan Emes Yaakov. So it says like this: Midah Zu. The last three are short. We'll try to finish it, and we should be able to finish the first chapter. So it says like this: Midah Hasirus Titan Emes Yaakov. Midah Zu Hi Sheyesh L'Yisrael Maila. Eisam Habeinim She'enim Yoidim Hisnaig L'Fnim Mishur Zadin. This is the Midah that is responsive, so to say, to those people who are called Yaakov. We know Chassidus also explains the difference between the level of a Yid that is Yaakov, which is a lower level than a Yid, which is Yisrael. Yaakov is the way a person is in the world. Yisrael is the way a person is named for Yaakov when it says Kisarisa, you've become a lord, and so on a higher level of avoda. So here in the Ramak, in the Tomar Devorah, it says this is the midah of Yisrael. He says like this: Midah zuhu sheyesh Yisrael. This is an attribute of the Jewish people that ma'ala oisim habeinim she'enim moedim yisnag l'fnim mishur zatin. They're the type of people that don't go beyond the letter of the law. You have people that go beyond the letter of the law. And the idea of Titan Emes Yaakov is the God's response, so to say, to people that don't go beyond the letter of the law. They do things orderly. This is what I'm supposed to do, this is what I'm not supposed to do. If I covered my bases, I've covered my obligations. You want me to go beyond my obligations? That's not their avodah. They're the people that do what you need me to do, and I will do it. And that's why it's called Yaakov, because Yaakov is Akev. Akev is the heel, and that is it's a low level, the Ramak says. And therefore, the attribute is Titan Emes Yaakov. What's Emes? Emes is truth. It means over here, according to how you've behaved. You've behaved in a way of within the letter of the law. So God behaves with you within the letter of the law. The Haim Nikroim Yaakov. And why are they called Yaakov? The Ramak says. He doesn't mean to say truth as in a positive. It's not so much as a positive attribute that they have absolute truth. It means to say the way the truth is the way it should be, and the way it should be is the letter of the law, which is fine. But they don't go beyond the letter of the law. It means they don't know. He says over here in the translation, they're not ready to sacrifice what belongs to them, what's not part of their obligation, beyond their obligation to other people. How much should I give? 10% charity? That's what I'm going to give. Hashem also has the attribute of truth. God goes according to the mitzvahs of how you've behaved, according to the facts on the ground. The mitzvahs over here means the facts on the ground. So according to the facts on the ground, and the judgment, and the yosher, the way things are right, that's how Hashem responds to the person who's on the level of Yaakov, which is Titan Emes. Emes is the truth. Basically, how you've behaved, God responds. In all the other attributes, we've learned about how Hashem is compassionate for people that have sinned. Here we're talking about not the level of God's needing to respond in a way of compassion, because otherwise there's no way to approach these people. We're talking about how do you view a person that's not requiring great compassion, but a person who does what they're supposed to do, he or she, but does it according to the letter of the law. Again, he says these are people that behave in a direct, orderly way. So therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu misnag imam be'emes. So God goes and treats them in a truthful way, meaning what did you do? You did this, so this is what you're going to get. God's not going to go beyond the letter of the law. The compassion is based on what's deserving. They deserve it because they behave properly, but they don't deserve a greater level of compassion. So that's the midah of Hashem. Now he's going to say, and these are the last three are short. He says, what's this mean to ben adam lechaveru, between ourselves and other people? So he says, Gam ken ha'adam tzarech l'hisnaig im chaveru outside ha'yosher. So too, a person should be with their fellow he or she friend or companion or people that you work with, he means you interact with. Also, according to the Yosher of Amos, direct. Don't you don't have to push the judgment, bend the judgment. If a person acts, in a certain way with you, this is the Ramak's going a little bit off what he was saying before, meaning to say that we're not talking about a person who's violated you, who's sinned towards you, who's been hard on you, and you have to find it within yourself to interact with them. We're talking about people that are interacting in a healthy relationship and not wronging you, but they're not overly giving to you. They're not more than they have to. They're in every scenario that they interact with you. The question is, what's demanded from me? Do we have to bring a bottle of wine? Do we have to invite them over? Do we have to return the invitation? Right? This is the people that are trying to work with what's the mathematical equation of what you've done for me, what I will do for you. This is in a healthy relationship. In other attributes, we're dealing with an imbalance in the relationship. And how do you react when there's an imbalance to the relationship? But here we have a balanced relationship. So a person acts with their colleague in a direct way. You don't have to change or manipulate the judgment. Right? They don't really invite us over much, so we don't have to have them over more than once a year. And the compassion, your feelings for them, meaning to say how you get involved in their life, is according to them as how much they are involved in your life. Just how Hashem behaves to people that behave with Him, with God, in a balanced way. They give a balanced amount to God, what is required of me. So God gives what's required for them. He doesn't give them beyond the letter of the law. And he says like this, just like God has compassion on the brias, which are called the Bein, in the way of MS, and he finishes off with a sakanayism to try to rectify that, meaning to say God doesn't really appreciate someone who lives according to the letter of the law. He hopes that the person is able to find within themselves to go beyond the letter of the law. And that's the next midah. The next midah is midah achas esrei, the midah of 11th midah. What's that? So he gives titon MS. MS in this case means not emes lamito, not the truth, the way sometimes emes is translated as the real truth, which is very hard to come by. Truth here means in a simple way. What is truthful in our relationship? Let's be truth in this case means honesty. Let's have an honest relationship, right? The person comes and demands more from you. So you respond. Let's be honest over here. Your relationship with me is very balanced and very concise and very limited, so to say. So my relationship to you, I don't have to go further than that. And God said, in this case, when we're talking about a healthy relationship, it's not demanding from us to dig in deep because of a person that's wronged you, so to say. So then you could have a balanced relationship back with that person, which is not, in this case, the remark kind of frowns on that kind of relationship. The next one, the 11th one, is beyond the letter of the law. That's chesed. Chesed, what's the definition of chesed? Chesed is to be overly kind, not even when the person isn't deserving. So chesed la'avram, chesed for the people that act like Avram, that was overly kind to people, that means they go beyond the letter of the law. So then God behaves with them beyond the letter of the law, and that's the kind of people that you should have a relationship beyond the letter of the law. So he says like this, what's the chesed la'avram? So he says, Heim ha'misnahagim ba'olam l'fnei mishur satin. These are the type of people that act in the world beyond the letter of the law. Ka'avram Avinu, like our father Avram, that Gam HaKadosh Baruch Hu miznahig imahem lefni Mashir Sadin, that also God acted with those people like who act like Avram. God acts with him also beyond the letter of the law. What does that mean? What does it mean what's it mean to be beyond the letter of the law? Even in a scenario where the moment at this moment demands maybe to have a little bit of judgment, to be a little bit responsive in a judgmental way, because maybe something they've done that's wrong. He doesn't use the din al takva. Takva means he doesn't use the judgment strongly. Why? Because the person is generally a person that goes beyond the letter of the law. It's not direct give and take. It's not mathematical. You've done this, I've done that. God goes beyond what would be a regular response. It doesn't mean so much to say that God gives more every time they do something good. It means also that generally these are people that are beyond the letter of the law. And so if they're beyond the letter of the law, even if they have certain shortcomings, so the shortcomings are the shortcomings are overlooked sometimes, or not judged so harshly. Because God responds to them the way they are. So it's a kind of character of a person that behaves in such a way. And these are the people that act like in the chesed of Avram. That's what it means. They have an overly abundant amount of kindness. They behave like Avram, the way he was overly giving, and Hashem behaves with them also in that kind of way, and therefore he's overly giving. So what's this mean in our relationship with other people? So he says like this. If you're talking about people, what the emphasis over here is people that are mevater. Hold on one second. People that are mevater what's for them for others. So we 1 second, time out a second to put something. So these are people that are in their interaction with other people is in a way of that they're ready to mevater. The point is that they're ready to sacrifice what's for them for other people. It means they're giving maybe beyond the letter, maybe more than they have to for others. So therefore, Gama Adam in call Adam Yisnag b'tzagdek u'b'yosher mishvat. Regularly, with regular people, the way they regularly behave, meaning the people that try to have a balanced relationship with you. He said before in the 10th Midah that we have a balanced relationship back with them. Those that are people that are generally good people, he calls them, and kind people and giving people, and they're not looking constantly what is the minimum or what is required from me in this situation. Like, what do I have to do in this situation? They're overly giving. And Baruch Hashem, we're seeing this now in the unfortunate situation that we are in now, that the people are going beyond the letter of the law in their giving and their attitude, and they're trying to see how much they could help. So too, you should behave with these people in such a way. And he says, what does this mean? What does it mean that you should be overly giving to these people, or overly in abundance in the relationship? He says, so he explains it in a very interesting way. If with other people you had let's say a balanced or a limited amount of patience, savlan means patience, a giving person, even though sometimes in their personality it demands to have a larger amount of patience, you should have more patience for them, because they're in the flip side of maybe things that require, and we see that in people, that certain people that require greater patience are also very giving people. It could come sometimes hand in hand, and therefore he says, give them that patience. Is the only race of Yesir, give these people more patience. Have compassion on them, understand them. These are giving people, therefore they require sometimes more from you, and require more attention and patience from you. To also go beyond the letter of the law. It's not just that to give them more. We're talking about patience, we're talking about attention, we're talking about TLC, love. More than how you would be with other people. So here the remark is saying an amazing thing. That a person themselves, you sometimes see that people either are always like that with other people, it means that even with people that are not overly giving to them or not overly being beyond the letter of the law to them, they give more. It means they're much more giving in most relationships. But here the remark says that's not the way it should be. You should be balanced. The people that have a limited relationship with you that are giving in a limited way with you, respond that way. If that's the way they behave, so be balanced with them. If in the event you are dealing with a person, means you have to deal responsive to each person the way they are. If you're dealing with a person that's a very giving person and requires more attention and more patience and more love, give them that love and the patience and attention. And if a person is acting, their behavior is to be very limited, you don't require to give them more than they need. So if you may say, I'm going to be more giving in the relationship. You don't have to, he says. And these people you should. Be more giving, have more patience, have more attention, more love for this person than you would have with other people. But now he says another statement. That sometimes what happens is that if maybe you are not naturally that kind of person, and you're a kind of person that really has to work on themselves to be overly giving, or you're not as giving as, let's say, this person is. And sometimes in when it comes to friendship and attention and people you want to hang out with, you may want to hang out with a person that has a balanced relationship. It doesn't give more than they have to, but it's a very understandable relationship. And maybe those people are more people that you feel you want to hang out with more because it's balanced, it's clear. But the person that's a very giving person demands more attention, and maybe you don't want to give them that attention. So he says, no. If you have a question, who should you spend time with? Who are the people you should try to hang out with? It says, pay attention to those people, to the giving people, to the people that are going beyond the letter of the law. Yes, they require more attention. Yes, they require more patience. And yes, sometimes it's even annoying in a way. But if you have to choose who to hang out with, he says, these people should be chashavim lefanav, they should be chashuvim lefanav, they should be special to you and important to you. He says 2 times ma'id. The chavivim loy. It should be chaviv. This should be something that's not. They should be important to you and special to you. Chashuvim means important to you, and chavivim means special to you. And you should choose them as your friends. It's an amazing thing that Ramak is teaching us, because it says a person is influenced by their friends. You hang out with people that behave judgmental all the time, you're going to be judgmental. Not that you're doing anything wrong, but you're always judging exactly how much do I have to do, what's the minimum I have to do, not the minimum, but what's required from me now. I did already my share, I don't have to do more. That kind of attitude that Ramak says those are not good people to hang out with. You want to hang out with people that act like Avram Avinu, that are going beyond. And yes, they require more attention, they require more to give back. But if you have to choose, and sometimes we do have to choose, and this is, I think, a very, very important part of psychology in how we have relationships and how we build friendships. And I think the most important point we could take from this midah, because now we're going on to the 12th midah, is the idea that that a person has to be themselves balanced. Means with the people that act with you in a limited way, you respond like that too. And it's the people that act with you. And sometimes what happens is we're unfair. We give extra love and attention, maybe because we're insecure, to the people that are limited with us, and the person that's overgiving to us, we're annoyed with them. And the Ramak says, "What are you doing? Be very limited. Be exact and respond exactly as the person responds as the person's with you. The person with you is very precise and exact, and the relationship is very clear. Be like that back to them, and your extra attention give to the person, and the friendships you should build with the people that are overly giving." Okay, so that's the first two. One is the Beinoni, and one is, let's say, the overly giving, the Baal Chesed. So now he says like this. Hashtei Esrei, now the 12th. We're going to go to the 12th, and then we should hopefully finish the 13th. Hashtei Esrei, the 12th midah, is Asher Nishbat L'Avosenu. As I promised, I made a covenant with my L'Avosenu, to our forefathers. So what's that? So those are the kind of people that God's relationship with them is based on the covenant. Okay, I have a commitment. I made a commitment. I made a promise to your father to take care of you. I will take care of you, even though, had I not made that promise, I'm not so sure how much I would take care of you. He says, Yesh Adam, again, this is from 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th. We're going off of the people that have wronged you and all that, how we deal with that with healthy relationships. So here, the last four are dealing with healthy relationships. He says over here, Yesh B'nei Adam, you have the type of people that don't behave properly. Okay, they don't need an overabundance of love. It's not a crisis situation. They're just not nice people sometimes. So Pirsha Gemara, like it says, that I have Chanina. Chanina is the translation of what Chanina is. He says over here that I'll give grace. I'll give grace to the one that I gave grace. But I give grace. It's Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu. The Gemara says in Brachas, God says, the idea of giving grace is for what is it used? It's used for Laisim She'enam Hagunim. Those who are not, they don't behave right. They're not good people in a relationship. It's that Chinunim is a place of grace that God has to tap into that treasure, so to say, that deposit of grace to put a smile on for those kind of people. And we all know those kind of people. Again, these are in healthy situations where you have sometimes people that you can see the smile's plastic. It's not a real relationship. So you have to just have grace and be graceful to them. The gift to them is free. Why is it free? Because they don't deserve it. Why does he do it? God says, their parents were nice people. It's interesting, they're not so nice, but their parents were nice people. And I liked their parents, and I made a covenant with their parents. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. So therefore, I'm going to be graceful to their children, even though they're not anything like their parents. Even though they don't behave properly. Is Yisku, the reason why God gives them schusim, he has merits for them, is because of their forefathers, and I made a covenant to the forefathers that I'm going to have a relationship with their children, and therefore, notwithstanding of maybe their arrogance and their misdeeds, it's not that they're doing anything wrong. It's just they're not pleasant people. They don't deserve to be nice to them. I'm going to do it anyways. God says that I'm going to behave with them, and hopefully they will rectify this attitude that they have. So what does this mean in our relationship with people? It says, the Adam, such a person, even if you meet wicked people, not nice people. So don't be harsh or or try to embarrass them, put them down. Have compassion. Say to yourself, maybe, they're our brothers, right? We say we don't. Sometimes we look at people that behave themselves not properly, and they say these people are disgusting, but they're not. These are our brothers, and if they're our brothers, so our brothers, we have to and sometimes we have to look beyond the letter of the law. We have to look beyond even their behavior and say they're our brothers, and we have to have love. In our sisters. I'm not, and if they're not proper, their forefathers were proper. And this attitude, unfortunately, the Jewish people had to come on to more than once when it comes into relationships with each other. Right? A lot of times there's a lot of animosity between different Jewish groups, and what we have to come on to is the fact that we say that we're brothers and sisters. And he says, their forefathers were good people. And therefore, if I'm going to be harsh. Mevaza means to embarrass. But if I'm going to be harsh and coarse with their children, then really I'm offending their parents. So when a person looks at another yid, sometimes this is something very applicable to today. Before what's going on now in Israel, when there was a lot of the camps were kind of divided, and you say, all right, this person, I so don't agree with their opinion, whatever the opinion is. But you have to remember that when you're very harsh and judgmental to another Jew, so you're embarrassing who they come from, and they come from Avram and Yaakov. They're just as much a Jew as you are. And they come from Sarah Rachel. It's I'm not going to embarrass the forefathers of the Jewish people by being harsh with this person. And therefore, you try to cover over their elbum, their so to say, the things that they've done that were wrong, and to try to fix them. Hopefully, it's like where you see someone shouting at you and you're trying to put on tefillin with them. We had stories like that in the past few months, people coming and shouting. And how did the young Chabad boy respond? He responded with love back to those two ladies who were screaming at him, calling them all kind of names. He didn't go back and respond harshly to them. He said he's trying to be nice to them, like they say, grew them close with love. So that's the 12th attribute. That's the final attribute, 13. He says, what about a person that's so far from Yiddishkeit, so far that they don't even recognize? Sometimes you have a situation where the person says, I'm a Jew, you're a Jew. Sometimes the person says, don't bring up me being Jewish. I don't identify as a Jew. I don't identify as a Jew. The person may say, I don't identify as a Jew. Don't call me a Jew. I once was telling people about how many people, I said, there's so many sort of Jews in this campus. He says, don't call them Jews. They're white. They're English. They're regular. They put them in the pile of the regular white people, so to say. So he said, the person that doesn't want to identify, don't call me a Jew. I'm a regular person. I'm a member of society. And it happens to be I'm Jewish, but I don't want to be identified as a Jew. God forbid. So what about such a person? So he says, what happens if, God forbid, they don't identify with their parents? What's tam chusavis? Tam means it's finished. They used out the merit of their forefathers, not because they used it out. They're not identifying with that. They're not identifying with being a Jew. Like the Rebbe talks about, the fifth child doesn't even come to the Seder. You have the Rasha, comes to the Seder. I'm Jewish and I'm angry and I don't believe in the Seder. What's this that you're doing? But he or she knows that they're Jewish and they come to the Seder. The Rebbe talks about the fifth child, doesn't come to the Seder, doesn't identify as a Jew. So that means Thomas Chusavis, they're not touching, they're not connecting to the fact that they have forefathers and mothers that identify, that make them Jewish. So what do you do in such a scenario? So Mayasa, what do we do? There's nothing about them, there's nothing about their behavior. It's not because you can't say, well, really this person's nice, because then you're not being nice to them because they're Jewish. You're being nice to them because they're nice people. So there's nothing to do. But here Hashem is saying there's nothing about them that is proper. Nevertheless. God says maybe you're not identifying with your forefathers or mothers or your fact that who you come from. But I remember, not you, but your father. So you walked after me in the desert. There was a time before you went sour. And that's Zacharti Lachesed Nurayach. I remember the good in you when you were young. The love that he had towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says that Mamish, this is the remembering that Hashem says, he remembers Yirmiyahu. This is from the prophecy of Jeremiah, who says he remembers the love the Jewish people followed God in the desert to receive the Torah. So he says, Mamish Zeichar Kadosh Baruch Hu Yimei Kadmoinim. God looks back and remembers how the Jewish people were, not just Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. That Avashesh Shahayim Mikoidim Rachma Yisrael. Remembers the initial love that we had as a people. And therefore he has compassion on us, even though we went sour ourselves. And God says, you know what, this person's not really so bad. When they were young, before they got angry, right? Before they got angry and didn't want to identify with anything. So everyone has good things about them. The Kol HaTayvus, Chomidus Tayvus, and all the good things that they've done and the good behaviors. And God, therefore, I skipped. So is God remembers the early days, the love that there was. He has compassion on the Jewish people. And he remembers and reminds himself of all the mitzvahs the Jewish people did over the years. That as a nation, we're good people. So maybe this generation has gone sour by certain people, but they come from people who lived lives of doing Torah mitzvahs. And therefore God applies to them all the good, how God is a person who behaves good in the world. It says Taivis, all the good attributes. And he uses it as a way to have compassion for them. And therefore he says that from the Medrash, and this midah that God has to take within himself means there's nothing there positive. But he takes from all the other attributes of understanding and compassion and not judging and throwing away the various, all what we've learned in the first 12 midas, he says, he applies to this situation, to this person. But this person doesn't want to identify with his past, doesn't want to identify with the Jewishness. But you know what? They had a grandfather, a great grandfather was a part of them. They have a history from people that were Shomer Torah mitzvahs, that did keep Torah mitzvahs. They went after God in the desert. It's not just because they're descendants of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, meaning to say that they're born with a Jewish soul, but they actually come from people in their family, from people that served that were people that did Torah mitzvahs, and God remembers that about them, even though they don't apply to themselves, and even though they themselves don't remember it. So if that's the way Hashem behaves with us, so too when you have people that don't want to identify with you at all, they're not connecting with you in any way. Again, they're not doing anything wrong. They're just partially don't want to have anything to do with you. Even if you can't find any reason to be kind to them or to be giving to them or be understanding to them, they're really obnoxious, deeply obnoxious, arrogant, not understanding. You're mamish in different worlds. So how do you bring it in within yourself to break through that wall and build a relationship with such a person? Is Yomar, you say to yourself, there must be some point in this person's life before this person is so angry, before this person is so disconnected. It may not be them, maybe their parents, their great-grandparents, but at some point, where this person comes from, even though right now it doesn't identify, right now very angry, we're literally, this last midah comes into play with what we were facing up until the Shmini Atzeres of this year, of all this animosity and what was going on within the Jewish people. So how do you find within yourself? How did that young boy stand in Tel Aviv, find within himself to smile and ask this lady shouting at him if she wants to have Shabbos candles? There's a place in this person's past, before, maybe not in this individual, but in his or her past, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, somewhere. But they didn't have this anger. They weren't angry at me. We would have had a common ground. There was goodness there. The anger wasn't there. The disconnect wasn't there. And remind yourself of the good they've done when they were younger. Sometimes also just in a relationship with people. You have people that when you grow older, you really disconnect. But when you were younger, you both sat in the same preschool, right? And then there was no I'm from this kind of social standing or social circle, you from that social circle. Everyone was together in the same daycare center, right? You have to go some back times all the way to the time when you were a nursing child. Person that was nursing from their mothers. And therefore, if you go all the way back to that person, before there was really a divide, there's a part where every two children, Jew, Gentile, religious, not religious, this circle, that circle, kids, you take kids to the park, 99.9% kids play together in the park. It doesn't make a difference, Jew, Arab, it doesn't make a difference what the situation is. Kids could play together in the park. When you could get back to that point, two kids could sit on a seesaw together. So then, there'll be no person. That if you go back to that point, where you sat together in the daycare, you sat together in the park and played, that you can't reach back to that point and to be good to that person. And hope that person should find completeness and peace, love, and to have compassion. So that is, he says, and here we finish the 13 attributes. He says, we've reached the 13 attributes of Hashem. That person should be like his or her master, meaning to say like Hashem. And he says like this, and when a person, what is the school? What is the remedy here? That the way a person behaves in this world with other people, finally, if you can reach the level of the 13th attribute, that's the only way you could connect to that person. The only way you could connect to that person is to remember that you could be, maybe not with this person, but reach back to the level of two children playing in a park. It's then a person is so too God will open up his attributes to you from above. And then each time you break yourself and you work on yourself to be overly understanding according to the 13 attributes that we've studied, and you bring it that Hashem should reveal those attributes in the world. Therefore, don't allow it, don't take it out of your mind, don't take it out of your focus, these 13 attributes in every situation that you may face. And the verses of the 13 attributes shouldn't leave your mouth. You should always remember when you're faced with a challenge, remember, now I have to come on to this attribute in order to be able to get through this situation. Maybe you're going to have to use one of these attributes in a situation of an interaction with another person. A person should remember and say, how do I react in such a situation? I'm faced with a challenge. My first reaction is I'm upset, I'm offended. Say, 1 second. Did I not remember the 12th, the 10th, the 5th, the first attribute that teaches me how I'm supposed to interact with such a situation? I'm not going to walk astray. I'm not going to allow my temptation, my initial knee-jerk reaction response to be negative. I'm going to work on myself and contain myself to respond in the way how I learned from the Ramak and the Tomar Devorah. Because if I give in to my instincts to react harshly, get upset, get angry, so then that I'm, so to say, pushing that attribute out of the world. God says, the people don't want to behave this way. Why should I behave this way? And he says, Yizakenu Hashem HaRachman, the merciful God. He should give us the merit that we should be able to walk in these 13 ways of compassion. I want to thank everyone for joining. This is a recording. So those who are in the class, and those who are not here live, will want to follow to the end. We finish here the first chapter of the Tomar Devorah. God willing, next week we will start chapter 2, which continues on to Avodas Hashem, how a person should serve God, and how does a person interact with each other. And I think this is a beautiful ending to the Tomar Devorah Parak Rishon, first chapter. And I wish everyone, those who are in Eretz Yisrael with us here, should be safe, and Hashem should have compassion, the 13 attributes of compassion and micha that are very powerful. God should show them here now, in this world, in this situation, right now, today. That we shouldn't even go today into another day of pain and confusion and hurt, and all those who have been taken should be returned, and we should see the Mashiach B'Karev Mamish now. Laila Tov, everyone, and take care.